Welcome to this short screencast for LPEQ members as an introductory video to show some of the things that the Guide database, LPEQ's proprietary investor database, some of the things that it can do. Guide was created by Amar Rapaka, based largely on data from Orient Capital, Preqin and others. So you have the Excel spreadsheet, and the first tab is Contents, and this is what you see. And under Contents, number 1, Investor Map, that's Guide itself, that's the main database, and everything else you can see on this page under Analysis are examples of some of the wonderful things that you can do with Guide. There are examples that Amar has created, so we can look at them a little bit later. But first of all, let's look at Guide itself by clicking on Investor Map, and this is what you're presented with. It's the whole database, and there are a number of ways that you can slice and dice things. So under column A, you have a user-friendly, what we call control panel, with a number of filters by asset class, which is listed private equity, but 7 other comparable asset classes as well. We have something called Investor Outlook, which tracks whether investors are bullish or bearish over the period in question, which incidentally for this version of Guide is the second half of 2012. Then we have where the investor is based. Beneath that we've got investor type and then investor style. So there's some of the main ways you can filter things, but we also have these filters at the top of the columns. So let's show by example. So let's click on France, and by clicking on France, what we're doing is expanding the field of those investors that are based in France, and from this we can see everything that they're invested in across all these sectors, because we've not hit any of these filters yet, and all of the countries. So French investors investing into Belgian-based businesses. So the first one we see is Allianz Global Investors. They're investing in a Belgian company called Groupe Bruxelles Lambert, which is a diversified financial, and they're investing 500,000. And what we see on column L is their trend line over 6 months. The green dot being the highest point over that period, and the red dot being the lowest. So there we have France. They're all investors in France, and we can, if we want, right click and expand the field here. Say we want to just see all investors, just want to see the whole thing, so let's do that again. So we've got Germany. Now I'm going to right click, expand entire field, and what that'll do is it'll just bring up the entire database for you to scan. So there you have it, and that will go on for a long way. But to make things a little bit more user-friendly, Amar has included, let's collapse this field back to the start, so these user-friendly ways of slicing and dicing things. So let's say, for instance, we only care about listed private equity for now. We just simply click that tab and that reduces the field. And let's say we only care about investors in listed private equity who over the last 6 months have significantly increased their stakes. So we click what we're calling bullish. And let's say that we only care about those ones based in Finland, and let's make it a little bit more interesting and say the Nordics. So in order to do that, you have to press Control to click more than one field, and boom, we have those 3 there. So they come up in the main part of the spreadsheet. And if we expand, let's expand Norway, and then right click and expand the entire field. So there we have all the investors that we have in this database based in the Nordics that have increased in some way their stake to listed private equity over the last 6 months. That's where the money's from, that's where the money's going, column C. That's the name of the investor in column D, and then column F is the name of the recipient country. So that's interesting as far as it goes. But let's say, for instance, that we do care about listed private equity, but we also care about diversified financials. So let's press down the Control button and click that as well, and suddenly you can see that things have expanded here a little bit, including a few other countries. So You can do that for, you know, equity trusts and listed infrastructure, and you can have a play around with this for as long as you want. So let's clear some of these fields, and of course, so I'm not going to show you, the same applies for investor type and investor style. It's relatively self-explanatory, but you can also filter things up here. So we deselect and we say we only care about investors coming out of Australia, okay, and we only care about listed private equity, or let's say equity trusts and listed hedge funds for a change. There we have it. So we can clear those fields and select all again. As well as the very macro stuff, though, you can also do quite specific things. So let's say that we only care about a specific investor. So we deselect all and we can search for it. So let's say we only care about Red Rocks. There it is. Okay. So Red Rocks is based in the US, so column B only has one geography, but it invests into a number of different countries across two sectors: listed private equity and diversified financials, and all of these recipient companies. Okay, so there's that. Fine. Let's clean things up. Select all again. Okay. So hopefully you're starting to get an idea of just the power of guide and how many ways and different ways it can be applied. And to that end, Amar has put together some examples, some fairly obvious examples of some of the things you can do. So going back to the contents tab down here, we've got various analyses he's put together. So the first one is foreign and domestic. So this shows across the 8 comparable sectors the source of capital, the lower degree of diversification, meaning that most of your money is from home, as is the case for ABC arbitrage, whereas, and you could put this into another Excel spreadsheet and sort by degree of diversification, of course, and then you could come up with who has the most international sources of capital, and some being 100%, so that's relatively self-explanatory, I would have thought. He's also done the top 10 investors across all of the comparable asset classes. So again, if we only care about listed private equity, we can see that it is dominated by rich families, individuals and passive funds. Okay, but we could click control and, you know, the field changes there. Cross shareholdings, and Mars put together this very useful spreadsheet, I think, of which investors are shared among LPEQ members, so you can look at that at your leisure. There's also this one on pension funds and investment patterns, including unlisted PE, where Amar's taken data from Preqin and combined it with some of the public investor sources. So that's well worth a look. Here's an interesting thing of one of the things you could do, which is to compare the shareholdings with a specific entity. So in this case, we've got 3i, and one of the things we could do is deselect all. So what we want is, say we are Electra, and we only want to know who's in 3i that's not in us. Well, we'll just sort like that, and boom, there we are. Get a very quick view of the situation. So 6 and 7 are similar analyses, but this time across the subsectors, firstly by number and then by value of shareholdings. And then we've got a number of kind of heat maps showing, in this case, investor locations. So LPEQ is column C, and you can see the comparables across other listed private equity companies here, and so that's by location. The next one's by type and style, so I think it's relatively self-explanatory. So I'd urge you to take a look at these analyses and play around with the investor map. I think you'll find that it can fulfill a lot of kind of business requirements for each individual member.